What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here. We are live tonight, Wednesday at 8. You're tuning in on all the avenues that you can catch this show, but most importantly, the Buffalo Fan Base Podcast Network, which is your home, the originators of the Bills Mafia, Del Reed. This show is brought to you by 26shirts.com. Go to 26shirts.com. All of your money goes to a good cause. They got Bills shirts, Bandits shirts, Rochester Americans shirts. How about some Sabres gear? The Sabres are on a roll right now. They've won 19 games out of their last 23. In case you didn't notice, tonight on the show, we got a great guest, somebody that I've followed for a really long time, Erin McGuire. Erin, thank you so much for hopping on the show tonight. Really excited to have you.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Go Bills.
Go Bills. Yes, so we got a lot to talk about. You didn't pick just any other day to hop on the show. This is just not any other day. This is a first episode after the breaking news came down yesterday at One Bills Drive. The Buffalo Bills hired Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator. Where were you when you heard the news that Joe Brady was staying on as or being promoted, I should say, as the new head coach?
Yeah, I was here at my house. I live here in Virginia, just outside DC now. And we got a little bit snowed in this weekend. They do not do well with plows out here. And I was in my kitchen, and a friend of mine who's in Georgia politics texted me and said, was it really Joe Brady? And I said, there is no way. I just found out we hired Joe Brady through a Georgia Politico. This did not just happen. Sure enough, it did. So yes, I was in my, and then then it explodes. A million text messages. Everybody's going back and forth, and so yes, it was here at my house.
Okay. Yeah, that was kind of similar to what I was doing. I was doing some stuff and going place to place throughout the day. And I actually, for whatever reason, it was snowing so bad on my commute. I coach, so I was heading to an actual meet tournament rather. And I couldn't get my XM radio to kick on because the snow, my antenna was like covered yesterday, yeah. And it just said on the screen, Bills hired Joe Brady as next head coach. I flipped the channel. I'm like, let's see if this is just my eyes playing tricks on me. So I flip it back, and Colin Cowherd is talking about Joe Brady as the next Bills head coach. So what do you think of the hire? Just in general, obviously it took you by surprise, right? But what do you think in terms of the future of this team and Joe Brady being named to the HC?
So I remain always endlessly optimistic as a Bills fan, but hopelessly
Mhm.
crushed at the same time. We live in both universes at the same time. It's the most Bills pick I could have expected outside of Brian Daboll. This
Mhm.
is one thing that this ownership and front office have always loved is bringing back in familiar faces, whether it's personnel, coaching wise, or it is players. I mean, Tre'Davious White is back. Jordan Poyer came back. I don't know how many, right? Like we always hit the Balin Spector season, part of the season on the team, right? We always bring in familiar parts to the package that we feel comfortable with. So I felt it was somebody that the Bills would be most comfortable with. And I thought it would be Daboll because everybody is still too close to McDermott. And they said that that coaching was why he got fired. But now that we're getting a little bit of the curtain coming up behind Oz at One Bills Drive, now that McDermott's gone more than we have, it's clear that that is a much messier setup there than we've been allowed to know previously because they did such a good job keeping it under lock and key before. Do I think Brady might have great new ideas and maybe be the thing that can really make Josh Allen? Of course. Like, I'm always going to want us to win. I want a
Right.
Super Bowl so much. Everybody knows this as a Bills fan. I just don't think that this was the hire that says, like, well, thank God we got rid of Sean McDermott because look at this big, brilliant new brain that's coming in. I'm not convinced, but I remain an ultimately optimistic, but very deeply pessimistic Bills fan.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. The Bills are always, I look at them as like they try really, really hard, but I just wish they would listen to the fans a little bit more. If they listen to the fans, I feel like the fans would then be happy. But I don't think anyone really wanted this. Like, this wasn't something that I heard fans really clamoring for. I'm in Buffalo. I planted my feet here, grew up here, and my career's here and everything. And just daily conversation. The Bills come up. If someone's wearing a Bills hat, the conversation's going to come up. If you're wearing a Bills shirt, the conversation's coming up. If you're from Buffalo, generally you say hello the same way that you say goodbye. Go Bills,
Mm-hmm.
go Bills, or see ya, go Bills. Like, they're always going to come up. And we've been really privileged these last 9 years with a really successful product that was led by Sean McDermott. And that is not a decision that should be taken lightly. When you see news like that, it took me back. Did I expect it? Not really. Was I shocked? I wasn't really either. Would you say, like, when you heard the news about Sean McDermott, were you more shocked about McDermott being fired or Joe Brady being hired?
More shocked about Sean McDermott being fired because I
Mhm.
had the hope that Terry Pagula would see what I think most Bills fans do, which is when you don't have cap space, when you're mismanaging the budget, when you have busted draft picks, when you screw up at the trade deadline, that's not the coach's fault that
Mhm.
that roster wasn't a better team. That's the front office, and that's Brandon Beane's fault. I was very much of the camp like something's going to change.
Mhm.
Somebody's going to lose their job here, and working in a deeply competitive industry the way I do,
Yeah.
people get fired all the time at any moment. It is not a fun thing to do, and I don't wish it upon anybody, any coach, anywhere, ever. That is not easy. That doesn't mean as a Bills fan we didn't need to make a change. I just thought accountability would go where accountability should have gone, which is to the roster and to how the team is managed. And for Brandon Beane to sit there and essentially say the reason this roster isn't better is because of Josh Allen's salary told me absolutely everything I needed to know about that front office.
Yeah.
Because Josh is the reason we've gone to the playoffs. Josh
Mhm.
is the reason we are this crazy random fan base with an MVP now.
Right.
That the reason that the Bills could even play in the 13 seconds game was because of Josh Allen continuing to be a superhero. How dare you say that somehow he's the problem? Like, so, working in politics the way I do, I will say, yeah, like I tell my clients all the time, like, don't listen to the noise on the internet. Like, stay focused on our message, stay focused on our mission. You got to win. In this instance, I agree with you because when
Mhm.
it's like 98-2 that Bean was the issue versus McDermott out of fans, and then they not only had the typo in the press release calling him Admiral,
Oh my God, that was a disaster.
the press conference
Yeah.
after, you just incensed everything about Bills fan that makes us the best fan base in the country. We're passionate. We're diehard. We sat through 17 gosh darn playoff drought years. We love this team. Don't be disrespectful to our own. It's like family. Like, oh no, no. I can say that about my mom. You can't say that about my mom. Like,
Right, right.
same thing as Bills Mafia.
See, the thing for me, what made Sean McDermott so different, that I think he had a quality that was really undervalued and underappreciated. I coach, right? And I kind of can take pieces from other coaches. Great coaches copy each other. Like, it's a
Yeah.
copycat league. Great coaches, aspiring coaches, you want to learn as much as you possibly can from the best. And I thought what made him so different was his mentality to coaching. He kind of approached things from a wrestling background, applied it to football, played football, and then kind of applied it to his team, to where it makes sense how this team was able to put all these dents in this door. The most frustrating thing, they just couldn't knock it down. And to that, I can kind of understand why they went in a different direction. I just don't understand the direction that they have gone in itself. If selling to the fans, the messaging, to your point, is a little off. Like, selling to the fans that, Sean McDermott was just not our guy anymore, that he couldn't get us over the hump. That's one thing. But then bringing up, promoting a guy that Sean McDermott hired and promoted himself, that's a little funky to me, right? So I think that, to your point, that's like a PR spin, that tomorrow at noon when they have this press conference, those are the types of questions that they'll have to answer, Aaron.
But they're going to have to answer a ton of questions about this. They're going to have to, if I'm a reporter, you better believe I'm asking about Keon Coleman. They threw him
Yes.
straight under the bus in the last
Yes.
press conference and then just kept backing the bus up and back right over
Right.
Keon. They didn't care. And
Right.
that's the one thing, Terry Pagula said, when I walked in that locker room and all those guys were crying, I knew we needed to make a change. Instead of seeing that the way that I think that you and I saw that as Bills fans, Sean McDermott had these players so bought in, so
Yes.
believing, so knowing that they could win the entire Super Bowl and how much we wanted as fans, how much we have lived for it, that they were crushed, that they
Mhm.
couldn't make that happen, that they were so bought in. But Terry saw it in a negative way, and that's disappointing. And it's clear to see why Terry Pagula does not go and do interviews, does
Right.
not do anything. That sad sack. I don't get to watch my daughter tennis player. Fine, Terry.
Mhm.
You want to do less football? Sign paychecks and go be the dad who watches his daughter at every tennis tournament. That's fine too. It's your investment. Play how you want to, but don't give me sad sack. That entire firing press conference and everything since, I hope that maybe they brought someone new in for Joe Brady to get him ready, because it's been a masterclass in how to not only make the people who support you most mad, but also make the press corps mad at the same time. And dare I say, working in politics, rarely can
Mhm.
you upset your own base and the
Right.
media at the same time. But man,
Yeah.
the Pagula Bean team really did a good job with it.
That's a really good. I was about to bring that up. Like that's the, I guess, cardinal sin in politics. Like don't hurt your base. Know your base. Trust your base. Work with your base. Build on your base. And I hate saying this. It pains me to say it. Really does. I want your spin on this, but I don't know if you follow the Buffalo Sabres as closely as the Bills. I'm not sure. But I think even the casual fan knows that the Sabres have been really, really bad for a really long time. But now this season, the Sabres, December, they haven't lost, I think, since like in regulation, since like December 9th. They were on this crazy run that has gone on, for over a month. It's almost as if the Bills and Sabres have flip flopped.
Yeah.
They've went like the complete like they've changed places in a span of like 6 days,
But
really since the Denver loss.
what did Pagula do in Buffalo for the Sabres that he's doing with the Bills?
He's putting his hands on it too much, I
He
think.
brought back the people he knew.
Yeah.
Bringing back Ruff,
Yeah.
putting him back in the coaching job. This is this
Right.
is this is a creature of habit that I've ever seen. And if I was writing a script to like beat somebody, you couldn't hope for a better villain than Terry Pagula, because he keeps doing the same thing over again and hoping for a different outcome. Yes, the Sabres are playing better now. Thank God. Love that. I have an old school Maxima Finneganoff jersey from
Oh,
back when I
yes.
was in college. So I watched them
Nice.
more in college. I am much more of a Buffalo Bills fan than I
Sure.
am a Buffalo Sabres fan. But to your point, everybody knew that like the joke in Buffalo was he tore down the Sabres and made the Bills. And now it seems that he's managed to flip flop that and ruin them both, because we don't have a Stanley Cup or a Lombardi trophy.
Right. He said the soul when he bought the Sabres. I'll never forget this. Everybody's smiling ear to ear and happy that they're saved
One
and that he's the
Buffalo.
savior. One Buffalo. The sole purpose of the Buffalo Sabres was to win Stanley Cups. And no one has ever really referred to it as Stanley Cups, like it's the Stanley Cup or multiple Stanley Cups. Like he referred to it as if it was Stanley's Cup, like something like that. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this guy is not the best public speaker. He might be a great businessman. He's definitely done well for himself. He's been able to buy 2 sports franchises, but get this guy away from a microphone at all costs. At all costs. Do you think Brandon Beane knows that potentially his butt is on the line? With this type of decision, with really Brandon Beane and Terry Pagula pointing the finger at Sean McDermott, the only voice that's out is Sean's. Joe Brady's remains in the conversation as it has been, the last 4 seasons. Do you think Brandon Beane goes into this season or this offseason rather knowing that you better make some moves, buddy, because you should be more willing to trade away a 2026 first rounder, because you might not even be here for the aftermath of it. Like, if you don't make moves, you could be gone, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that Brandon Beane has that level of self-awareness, and I certainly hope he does. But to see the way that he failed at the trade deadline and was like, well, I didn't know that was how that was going to happen. I don't know. Like the level of lack of accountability that you've seen out of Brandon
Sure.
Bean is really what makes me most nervous. But he has to know he's on the hot seat now because
Mhm.
that's his coaching hire. That is, he brought in Joe Brady. Now, Sean McDermott was in place before Brandon came over. So,
Sure.
like, he didn't get to play that role the same way. But now he is going to, like, if Joe Brady doesn't deliver, then they have no excuse anymore for Brandon Bean. Then this failed, it was Sean McDermott and not Brandon Bean trial that they're doing will not work. And again, I want Brandon Bean to be successful because that
Sure.
means the Buffalo Bills are. I want Terry
Sure.
Pagula to have a winning franchise because I want to go to a Super Bowl parade before I die. I like we all want that for this team, but we aren't convinced that the moves they made between elevating and promoting Brandon Bean, elevating and promoting Joe Brady here. Now we've got to find a new defensive coordinator with like Bobby Babich is out. We're looking
Mhm.
at really a whole new coaching roster. So
Yes.
how do they fill this team out in order to make it get past the holy grail that Sean couldn't? And right now, with the one set of publicly available remarks the team has made in that press conference, I'm not convinced they know their butt from their elbow. The
Yeah.
fact that like Terry was like, no, I hadn't thought about it before that game, but then I saw everybody cry and that was it. And oh no, it was the coaching staff who drafted Keon. That wasn't Brandon. He's just trying to like trying to take the heat for him. Brandon was like, no, that was like the crosstalk. They haven't given
Yeah.
consistent messaging. And in all of that, all you're doing is making Bills fans have spent so much money on new season tickets for this big, beautiful Nils Stadium. We're so excited for our team. Why can you not understand that as fans, we want a coach that wants the level of success we do and can deliver that? And we're not convinced through your messaging that you've done that.
Right. And I can't be convinced that they understand really what that looks like.
Or
Right.
that they
Even
want
though,
to.
or that they want to. Right. And even in the 9 years that Sean McDermott had done all the things that he had accomplished, I mean, this guy was really close. I think he was like 15 or 16 wins away from tying Marv Levy as like the all-time wins leader in Bills franchise history. I mean, that just speaks for itself, right? And now they've used this term that I want your take on, somebody that's worked in politics and understands, the hierarchy of a political campaign and more. Business wise, right? The CEO. They've referred to their coach
Yes.
as the CEO. Is Joe Brady the CEO, or is he just the guy that just says yes to Brandon Bean?
I mean, it's easy for Bills fans to see Joe Brady, and I agree with this, as an easy yes man hire. He already
Mhm.
knows how Terry Pagula operates. He knows how Brandon Bean operates. And they said that they wanted somebody who knew how the building operated. Well, you
Mhm.
only interviewed one person in the building, guys. Like, I
Right.
don't know how you expected this to pan out for you. But to call him the CEO, again, when they make these publicly available remarks, like this was that Fitzpatrick interview, right? But Ryan
Yes.
Fitzpatrick calls Brandon Bean and is like, "What's your story here?"
Mhm.
Those are the only set of remarks people have to go on right now. So tomorrow they have to define what that means. They
Mhm.
have to be able to tell Bills fans, "What do you mean by CEO?" Because don't you have King Terry over here, and don't you have Brandon Do No Fault Bean over here? Like, what are we doing to say that now this guy is the chief officer of the team now that Joe Brady's in place? They I feel disappointed for them as a communicator because there
Mhm.
are so many rookie mistakes that they've been making that
Yes.
you would think that as a storied franchise since 1960, that the Buffalo Bills would have a little better sense to make sure their message was tight on how they want to define the Joe Brady era other than CEO, because they're almost setting them up for the fall from the jump.
Yes, and to your point, Aaron, the pressure that Joe Brady is under. Now, I want to spin this in a different way. Joe Brady, the CEO. Let's just say I am the what's another team that's looking for a head coach? Let's just say I'm the owner of the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm looking for a new head coach. Joe Brady's out there on the market. Joe Brady on his own as a up and coming coaching candidate. There's a lot there to like. There is. He's been successful
Mhm.
statistically year after year. Josh Allen had an MVP season under him.
Yeah.
He's got a few bullet points in his resume that say, okay, worked at LSU with Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, all good stuff. But I think to what we've just talked about, the Terry Pagula, Brandon Bean messaging around this team needs a new voice. It's not really exactly a new voice. This guy's been here. He's been in the building. He's been with our best player, one of the best players, I think the best quarterback in the world, best player in the world, all the above.
100%.
It's just a really hard sell. And marketing wise, brand new stadium, rabid fan base. This fan base deserves the world and then some. And I feel like they're being lied to a little bit and played with a little bit. And I think that that's something that even the national media, which in my opinion, they don't really cover the Bills the way that they cover the other teams. I don't know if they
Yeah.
ever really have. Do you feel that way too, being in
Oh,
media?
yeah. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
So
The media loves to make it like the kid's sister, the other team, that like sad sack up in Western New York. I mean, we were the team that people retired in halftime of our games as players. Like, that is how the media treats the Bills even now.
yeah, and the whole thought around this is okay, this is the decision they made. I have to
Yeah.
come to terms with it. I'm not making the decision. I'm not Terry. I'm not signing the checks. Nobody
Mhm.
nobody is but Terry. But trying to rationalize it as Josh Allen's hire, why do you think Josh Allen would want Joe Brady promoted? Like if you were putting yourself in Josh Allen's shoes, he was sitting in on a lot of those interviews. They interviewed a lot of qualified candidates, a lot of new, kind of up and coming, I
Mhm.
guess you could say, hot hires, I guess you could say, in this coaching cycle. The names that were coming across the desk were guys that everyone was interested in, but they decided to promote from within. And the reports are circulating that Josh Allen really was pounding the table for Joe Brady. Does that scare you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course it does.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, a couple of things. One, Joe Brady was getting looked at by a lot of teams, but not as a head coach. There
Hmm.
were like his name was not up there for it was a lot of offensive coordinator, play call kind of roles, but not a lot of head coaching interest. So I always take that as one thing. And listen, I worship at the altar of Joshua Patrick Allen. I love our MVP. I was at the game in Baltimore where we benched Kyle Orton. We got our clocks cleaned, but Josh came out midway through the game and then after that started his starting streak. I am but one of many people who dare say anything negative about our man. I
Hmm.
will say this. Josh has had his hand in a number of coaching choices for the Buffalo
Yes.
Bills. And
They
while
didn't
I
work
love
out.
his well, I love his enthusiasm for that portion of being a Bills player. I think that the Bills organization and his team, his PR team, Josh himself, both agreed to put out that statement, even though it didn't have the Bills' name on it, where he said, oh, he was in on the interviews, but didn't have a hand in the short list or the finalists. Baloney.
Hmm.
Baloney. You're never going to convince me that Josh Allen was not out there rooting for the home team, which would be Joe Brady. If he wanted Joe Brady and he said, listen, guys, I've sat in on these interviews. I've looked at the crop of candidates. I still think Joe's the one who's going to be able to get us there. I feel the most comfortable with this. What
Hmm.
what are they going to do? I don't see them being able to push anybody else past. Now, if they had, okay, Terry Pagula, put your big boy pants on. Like, tell your player what you're going to do, right? Like, all right, let's go. No, I think Josh played a large role in this, and I think that was a poor decision because like I said, I love Josh Allen so
Hmm.
gosh darn much, but he's a player, not a coach at this point. And having
Right.
somebody you're close with and your buddy and you're already comfortable with isn't going to push you to the level you need to get through this last part. I mean, Josh did not play a good divisional round game. That
No,
was
it was one of his
not
worst
his
games he's ever played. Yeah.
right. And so now we're
Yep.
going to elevate the coach who put him in that position time and again. How many lateral screens are we going to watch to Khalil Shakir for a loss of 2 yards before we figure out that Joe Brady wasn't calling an offensive juggernaut? And
Right.
that's why like it burns me a little that Josh got so much say in this because it's clear he did.
Yes, definitely. And even from just technological standpoint, like on game day, Joe Brady's gonna have his hands literally full. Like I'd almost
Yeah.
compare it to a waiter or a bartender that brings that big, circle, and they got all the plates and trays and all that. He's gonna be calling the plays. He's gonna be running clock management, deciding challenge or not to challenge, checking the replays. There's just so many layers to a game day preparation that I think Joe Brady is obviously inexperienced in. This is the first time he's ever done this. I am shocked most of all that they decided to hire a coach that had never done this before, someone who has never been a head coach. Some of the names that they had interviewed, they had been assistants for a long time, worked their way up. Some of the names that were rumblings, guys that were head coaches before. I just didn't think they'd hire somebody that's never been a head coach before. And that is shocking too.
I think there is a level of shock to that. I also think if you look at Terry and at Brandon, they didn't want an incredibly experienced, strong head coach. They wanted a head coach that they could tell exactly what to do. And listen,
Sure.
I hope more than anything in my heart that that's not what this is. And I hope I am proven wrong and people play the tape and call me a fool
Sure.
for all of it. I'd love to be wrong about everything, please.
Yeah,
But to this
I get it.
point, and to your point, Joe Brady's never called an offense on his own. He's never done the play clock management. He's never done the full scheme in the way he's going to have to, both offensive and defensively, looking at the ball during the game for the challenges. Gosh, I hope he's a little more aggressive than Sean was. Prayers
Yeah.
up on that one.
Right.
But they wanted someone that they felt comfortable they could keep in their pocket. And I see that watching Terry Pagula in that press conference, I saw a guy that was pretty unlikable as a person.
I did
As
as well, and it was a shame
yes,
because
because
I don't think he's that guy, but he portrayed it very well, too well.
I don't think so. I mean, look at him and
Yeah.
Kim. Look at him and Kim.
Mhm.
What a great marriage they have. And the way
Mhm.
he has taken care of her and stood with her. And even before her accident, she was a
Mhm.
front office key part of the Buffalo
Yes.
Bills organization. And I
Huge.
loved that. I
Yeah.
loved having Kim Pagula. I don't think Terry Pagula is a bad person. I think Terry Pagula is making bad choices right now for this team in whatever high dollar haze he's in right now. I don't get it. I don't live in that stratosphere,
Mhm.
but I worry tremendously about our team, and you know this. I'm not the only voice out here going, "What is happening to our franchise?" I've never really been angry at the front office. Listen, we were all there through the Ralph Wilson era, wanting the team sold, like
Yeah.
who's going to get us there? What are we
I
going to
thought they were gone. I really did. All
When
throughout.
Bon Jovi wanted to take us to Canada, I was
Yeah.
like, it would have been me at the bridge, like over, like from my cold dead hands, like you're not going to Canada. Like
Right,
that
right.
set me off. But what Terry's doing is so much more destructive than that right now.
Mhm.
And it's based on his own ego, and he's not seeing beyond Terry Pagula as the owner of the Buffalo Bills. He's forgotten about this fan base and how much we know about Fireball High School. We
Yeah.
know about Matt Milano being a player out of Boston College, coming as one of our late round draft picks. We
Mhm.
know Deion Dawkins. We know Alec Anderson's one of the biggest trash talkers, and we know our team. And they don't respect us enough to think that we know enough about the sport to think that we want somebody who can actually bring in a new dynamic voice, because Josh needs something different and all we're
Mhm.
doing is the same thing.
Dare I say it, Aaron? Did you get, for better or for worse, because there's good and there's bad of every side of the coin, I guess you could say, with personality types like this. Did you see a hint of Jerry Jones in Terry
Yes.
Pagula? A little bit of a power hungry, my way or the highway. I signed the checks. This is my team. I did this. I did that. And it's like, well, the fans can control the heartbeat of every single franchise, right? Like the Packers, their fan base, it's like owned by the
Owns
county
them.
and they own them. Yeah. So literally, I mean, if you get enough fans heated and frustrated, it could lead to a move. And I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I don't want to say what I think is going to happen before it actually does. I don't want to play that like guessing game. But what I
Yeah.
expect to happen is some challenges this year to where I could see them taking a little bit of a step back because there's all these
Yes.
new pieces, new coaches. I think their defense is going to be completely different schematically, X's and O's
Yeah.
wise. Went from a 4-3, 4-2-5 to a 3-4. I think with some of the hires that I'm reading about potentially. So I think they could take a step back. If Joe Brady in his first season leads the Bills to a season that doesn't end in a playoff berth, I think he's fired. I
Yeah.
think after 1 year he could be fired. If that were to happen, if Josh Allen ever plays a season where he misses the playoffs, in my opinion, that coach should be fired. Whether it's been 1 year or
Yeah.
it's been 2 years, the time is now, right, Aaron? The time is now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. We want our Super Bowl. We know we have the quarterback to get us there. We are all
Yes.
so happy to be people who can wear number 17 and say, that's my quarterback. And to your point about a fan base, this is where Terry, and I think a lot of owners, Jerry Jones can probably be in that list too, don't understand the power of a fan base. What does everybody in the entire world call Buffalo Bills fans?
The Bills
Bills
Mafia.
Mafia. And where did that come from? The fans themselves. The
Mhm.
whole reason that the Bills get to put Bills Mafia and say that and call us that is because of Del Reed and the
Mhm.
fans of the Buffalo Bills. The reason the Mafia exists is because we are those people.
Yeah,
And they
yes.
have completely ignored that and completely forgot the fact that the branding they get to put on the shirts that they sell in their stadium is because of the fans who sat in the stadium in the drought years and watched Ryan Fitzpatrick play Tim Tebow on Christmas Eve, right? Like
I
we
was at
all
that game.
I was too. Do you
Were
remember
you
the sign
really?
on the Jumbotron there? They put up a sign
Yes.
on the Jumbotron that said, "Sorry, Tebow, Jesus left Buffalo 6 weeks ago." It's
Oh,
a
that
core
was yeah.
memory in my head.
I saw one that said something like Fitzmania, like Fitzmania, like Tebow Mania, but Fitzmania. And I thought instead of Fitz Magic, I think it might have been Fitz Magic Mania. That might have been what it said. I thought that's pretty clever. And that made the television on the recap. And I went to so many games growing up that weren't even on TV
Yeah.
because they were blacked out. They had that
Yes.
blackout rule, and there'd be like 42,000 fans in a 75,000 seat stadium, or even worse.
Or
I
one of
remember,
the local pizza shop would try to buy out a bunch of the seats. So if we were
yeah,
like even close to the playoffs, so we could watch the
right.
games at home. Yeah. Oh, I remember growing
Yeah,
up in
it
Western New
was
York.
it was a much different, and all those things that we're talking about, those things didn't change because Terry decided to buy the team. I'm thankful that he did.
Yeah.
1.425 billion in cash. Good on you. But Sean McDermott was what changed those things. It's such a shame. Like the logo that I'm wearing right now, the logo that's all decked out in my office here, and you got one on your wall too, and you got your little
And I
people
got my
behind
Bills
you.
blue
The
on, and
Bills blue on, yes.
I do have my tiny people over here,
Oh,
including
nice.
Sean McDermott.
Oh, yeah. He was the guy that changed that. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing that I think is his greatest accomplishment for sure. Regardless of whether he was able to help us
Absolutely.
get to a Super Bowl, the whole logo I felt like meant more. And as soon as he was gone, that logo's kind of gone backwards. In terms of the perception of the franchise as a whole. And I hope that this works out. Aaron,
Yes.
I share your sentiment that I hope this works out. I want to be wrong. I just don't think this was the right hire for the
Yeah.
team right now. I just don't see it. But hey, a lot of people didn't think Josh Allen was a franchise guy. You
Yeah.
go back, I was one of the few and proud that thought, let's do Allen, let's do Darnold, maybe Baker Mayfield, and that was it. That was all I was looking at
Hmm.
to that draft class. So, um, a lot to discuss there. We had to start the show off, majority of the show, with the Bills. I
Oh,
want
heck
to,
yeah.
of course, and I want to get your thoughts to just overall your career working in politics, and somebody that you're talking to right now, myself. I've always kind of worn my heart on my sleeve. Really proud, really, really proud. It's an understatement of the century. And it sounds so cliche, but there are days where I wake up in the morning and I see what's going on around the world, and I say to myself, thank God I was born in America, and I was given the freedom to do the things that I've been able to do and live the life that I've lived. I got a beautiful fiance. Eventually I'll have a family, and I'm just so blessed. In your opportunities that you've worked so hard for, what are the things that you've noticed just over the course of the last, 8 years about the state of this country that really jump out at you the most? I know that's kind of a loaded question because a lot has happened the last 8 years and things like that, but you've had seminal moments in your career, right? Chapters in your career that have helped kind of build you up into the person you are and have the values that you have. What are some of those moments to provide kind of a behind the curtain look at your career?
Yeah, I will say this. I really like share that sentiment that,
Hmm.
there's nowhere else in the world that I could live and work and have the opportunities and freedom and life I do than other here in the United States. And even in England, the censorship they're going through right now on social
Yeah.
media, I like there is truly no other country in the world that gives you the opportunity that being an American does. And I love this country, faults and all, because I
Yes.
know I would not have the life I have and be the girl I am if it wasn't for growing up in the United States of America. The way I bleed Bills blue, I bleed blue for this country. I love
Sure.
being an American. Um, and so, over the last 8 years, I mean, the political landscape hasn't changed a ton in terms of like the
Right.
larger political, world I've lived in. But in terms of like big moments of my career that have really put me to where I am now, in 2008, I interned at the Republican National Convention in Minneapolis, St. Paul, where we nominated John McCain to be
Mhm.
our Republican candidate for president. I remember meeting him and shaking. I was so excited.
The Maverick.
Um, oh my gosh. I mean, the
Yeah.
original. And he was such a statesman. And I went on to work in the US Senate for John Thune for a few years. And I love Senator Thune. I think the world of him. Um, and just always seeing Senator McCain in that light, it always stuck with me. He was just a true statesman in every aspect of the word. And in terms of like my career, it was taking the first shot I got to move to Wisconsin and work on a
Mm.
campaign in a state I'd never been in. Literally never been to Wisconsin. And I was like, to
Wow.
my friend, she was like, "Where do you want to work, Wisconsin or Nevada?" I was like, "Well, where are you?" She's like, "Wisconsin." I was like, "Great, at least I'll know one person in the state." Like that was
Sure.
when I was coming out of
Oh,
college, that
it's a
was all it took.
lifesaver. Yeah.
It's all it took for me to move. So that was a huge moment in my career. Always saying yes, even if it meant moving, was huge in the early part of my career. I went from New York to Minnesota to Connecticut to New York to Wisconsin to New York to Wisconsin to
Wow.
DC, all within like 5 years.
Mhm.
And so I always said yes if it meant moving, right? I've lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I've spent an unbelievable amount of time in Iowa. I've been to all 99 counties that
Wow.
exist in Iowa. I've always enjoyed that. And one of the biggest moments in my career, and I know this is probably more political than anything, is that I did get to work on the 2020 presidential campaign.
Mhm.
And that's when I started doing on-camera spokesperson work. That's when I first started really getting out there. And that changed the trajectory of my life. And really,
Yeah.
because I would have been a Happy Hill staffer, I think, for a very long time. I
Sure.
loved being on the Hill. I loved working with the reporters on the Hill. So I was just given a lot of big opportunities, and I was just crazy enough to keep saying yes.
And that kind of period, 6 years ago, 2020 till now, kind of galvanized who you are and your position that you're in now. I mean,
Yeah.
to what I said to you off the air, I see you on TV all the time. And to have somebody that I've followed and I see your personality morph in different ways and grow, like certain shows, Gutfeld, Sean Hannity, you bring what they want, but you bring it your own way. And
Hmm.
and you have an authenticity to yourself that I think a lot of people appreciate. I've had so many people reach out to me since this went live. A good buddy of mine, Scott, he said, Ryan, you had an amazing guest. My wife and I love Erin McGuire, Fox News contributor. We love when
Ah,
she's on Gutfeld. My mom's a big fan of yours. My mom,
oh.
God bless my mom. I love my mom. When I'm talking to the X's and O's people, she's like, "Yeah, that was a pretty good episode." She's watching tonight. Like she's tuned in. She's watching. She
Hi.
knows. Yeah, she's watching right now. So all the experiences you've had. I mean, I'll go back a little bit. So going back to 2015, I was somebody that I knew that the country needed someone to really shake things up, and things had kind of remained the same for me. I graduated high school 2010, graduated college 2014. I felt like there wasn't really much of a difference from those two periods. You know, like who I
Hmm.
was before college, who the country was after. I felt like something needed to change. And when I first heard that Donald Trump was throwing his hat into the ring, I thought, okay, here's an outsider, doesn't need to do this, has made his money, could live his life, do whatever the heck he wants. Little did I know the 10-year journey or plus 11 years now that it has been. And, you know, I grew up in New York, very liberal state, blue state.
Hmm.
I have a lot of people that are one side, other people are another side, you know. I try to look at things as down the middle as I can and see both
Yeah.
sides of the aisle. But with what's gone on these last, 5, 6 years, I wasn't shocked when he was reelected. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It wasn't a shock to me to see him
Yeah.
reelected. In your circle, what did that feel like to see everything come full circle, the 2020 to 2024? You know, he loses the election in 2020, wins it back in 2024, which hasn't happened since Grover Cleveland. Just being around that in Virginia and close to Washington D.C. What's the pulse like around that area right now?
Yeah. So, one thing about politics, and I think you can appreciate this being in sports, is we are a deeply competitive industry. We
Sure.
all want to win. That is the goal. And
Hmm.
so to win is always the best. I mean, to get a Republican president in the White House, hello, like and to see, my former boss then become president again, and to see
Hmm.
my other former boss become Senate Majority Leader in that same
Yeah.
time, like what an exciting time. I think people see DC and they see the clips of Capitol Hill and they see, AOC and Jasmine Crockett fighting with Jim Jordan and, Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? You hear these big kind of more bombastic names and they think it's this really hard polarizing city. And I'm as friends with as many Democrats as I am Republicans. I
Me
do,
too.
a lot of TV. And so I'm in green rooms with
Sure.
Democrats all the time. We talk, we're friends. It's not as adversarial as people would believe. And it's, you know, when I first started on Capitol Hill, I started in the Senate, and everybody's partial to the chamber they start in. You're either a House person or a Senate person. I'm very much a Senate person and very much an institutionalist in that way. But it was always very statesman. It was
Mm.
have a battle on the floor, really passionately share your opinions. And then when you're done, you walk away and you're friends. And a really great example of that is there was a female senator out of Maryland for a very long time named Barbara Mikulski. She was a
Mm.
Democrat who was probably a whopping 4'8" tall, very short woman. Fun fact, she's actually the reason that women could wear pants in the Senate because previously they could only wear a dress.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
random Senate knowledge is very dorky and very deep. But
That's awesome.
she gave her farewell address, and the first person to go up and hug her after was John Cornyn of Texas, who is a
Hmm.
Republican senator who's probably 6'8". And
Wow.
not only were they physically very different, but ideologically as far
Polar
apart as they
opposites.
could be.
Yeah.
But they understood the purpose of the institution and the country and the work we do to serve the nation. Even I'm not an elected official, but working in the Capitol, I considered service to the nation because I'm
Oh, for
working on
sure.
the taxpayer money. I was
Right.
getting paid. And so that's always kind of how I've maintained myself is, the old John Boehnerism. You can disagree without being disagreeable. And
Sure.
I don't make it personal. And so people see that really negative stuff on the news. It's really not like that. I mean, there are plenty of hardcore partisans that won't talk to each other. That's not the majority of the city. We're all professionals. We do this for a living. We know we're going to
Mhm.
have to work together in some capacity. So we're all generally adults about ourselves.
And a lot of that, it's very similar to sports media. I've been on shows and things like that where they get the debates get very heated,
Yeah.
right? And the ideas and the perceptions of your own ideas can combat against one another. People come away from that and they think, oh, those two people, they really don't like each other. It's like, no, those people work together. Like those
Hmm.
people literally work together to create not just for the show, but to bounce ideas and create vigorous debate. And I thought that was something that, you know, on a somber note, somebody in my generation that I thought was doing that really, really well was Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
And, going through that, he's somebody that I'd see on the YouTube algorithm and I'd think, this guy's 2 years younger than me, and he started his own business. He turned it into an empire.
Yeah.
What has that loss for the GOP and powers that be, what has that loss really meant to the cause, to the fight?
Yeah, I think in the near term, there are a lot of people who personally saw their dear friend heinously murdered in daylight in an incredibly
Mhm.
violent fashion. And a good man who was really a huge part of the grassroots network and the youth grassroots movement in this country. So the totality of the loss of Charlie isn't felt yet because
Right.
we we haven't had an election yet to see what the difference in the ability for Turning Point and Turning Point action to get voters registered, to get them out, what that actually mechanically looks like. I have all the faith in the world that Erica Kirk will be able to shepherd
Mhm.
that organization and keep it moving forward. But I mean, every time there's an act of political violence, it shakes you.
Sure.
It's heartbreaking. I worked for Kevin McCarthy on the Hill when Steve Scalise was shot and almost died.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember that whole day very well because my office was in the Capitol at the time and we
Mhm.
were all very uncomfortable. And that's the thing that we've lost a lot of in politics, that people might see me on TV and they might think, God, that girl is a total moron. What an idiot. She is just this MAGA crazy Republican kook. I mean, you name it, I've been called it and threatened with it.
Mm.
Um, but they forget that I'm a person and they forget that
Right.
about everybody in our movement. And it's not to say that I am anywhere near what Charlie Kirk was.
Right.
But they forget that and that's what happened to President Trump with the assassination attempts.
Mm.
And Kai Trump said this, his daughter or his granddaughter, who's an incredible, college
Yeah.
golfer. And his wife Melania said this too, the first lady, is that people forgot he's a son and a brother and a
Mhm.
husband and a dad, and he's so much more than just the president and this political figure you see. And that's what it's kind of the hardest part of all of this political violence, is at some point we stopped seeing each other as Americans first and saw each other based on the yard sign in our yard. And I fully believe that if my yard sign is one you disagree with, that's an opportunity for conversation, not an
Yes.
opportunity for hate. And we've
Yes.
kind of lost that a lot in the country right now.
Yeah, and I think I'm paraphrasing here, but I know Charlie Kirk had a really great quote. He said, "Without conversation, essentially, we're lost." Something like
Yeah.
that, to that effect. And I think that that's something that's just what makes this country better and more special than
Yeah.
than any country. I know you've
Because
had a what's that?
yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I love about this nation is I can vehemently disagree with every word someone says, and it can make my blood boil. But I will fight tooth and nail for them to say what they say, the same way that I should have the opportunity under the First Amendment to say wholly what I believe and what I want to say. And even
Right.
if I disagree, like, I will defend their right to do it the same way I would hope they would defend my right, even if they think I'm a crazy person.
And I almost, I talk to my buddies about this stuff and people close to me, family, friends, and even people on my social media. And I tell them that the same thing that makes me say I don't know if Joe Brady's a good hire is the same thing that made me say I don't know if this is the right person to vote for. It's the same. It's not the same subject matter, but it's the same principle. Like we should be able to say how we feel. We should be able to share our own opinions. And I'm sure there's people tuning into this right now that are saying to themselves, this guy's a sports guy. Why is he having a woman that's on Fox News and News Nation and HBO and Amazon Prime, GOP strategist? Because I want to hear from as many different perspectives as I possibly can. And I want to create those types of conversations that make people think. and that's something that I'm very passionate about. And anyone that knows me, that really knows me, knows that that is a passion of mine. And on the flip side of that, I'll have other people saying, "You got Aaron McGuire on your show? Like that's awesome." You know what I mean? And I think there's so many people that respect you for the path that you walk. It's very, very hard to walk that path. We've seen so much political violence. You've dealt with, political, name calling and threats and things like that. I'm sure of it. And in my opinion, I think that it's a really noble profession at this time to put yourself out there and to do the things that you do. So coming from me, genuinely, I really appreciate everything that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I'm just but one of many. And, you know,
Right.
a lot of people don't consider us a real career or a real industry in politics. They think we're just, a bunch of grassroots activists, but this is a real career. It's a real life. It's a real livelihood.
Sure.
But it's one that's very personal to people, even if I'll never meet them. And that's because what you were saying, who you vote for is such a personal decision. And
Yes.
it can be a very tough one because the majority of people make their decision based on that emotion. Do I feel that things are better now than they were before? Are my
Right.
groceries cheaper? Is my gas cheaper? People
Mhm.
live their lives in the grocery store and the gas line. Like these are all realities of working in this industry. So I know how personal it is to ask someone for their vote and how much that weighs on them about, wow, who do I think will help me or my family or my children or my grandchildren? And so we all try to take that pretty seriously in our industry, that while we have a lot of fun and we get creative and we try to do different ways and make headlines and be bombastic because emotion moves people. As much as people hate negative TV ads, they're the most effective way to do it.
Right.
And I also fully believe that the only way you get better at what you do is by talking to the other side and watching their tape. And, it's almost like scouting a football team, right? You
Sure.
want to see what they're doing. You want to know what's going on. You want to know what the play call is going to be, how the scheme looks, what their tell might be. Like if I'm going to go on camera with someone, I'm generally going to know, like, if I'm going to get into a debate with them, if they're going to get upset and what I
Sure.
could do that could possibly trip them up, right? Like
Yeah. It's all a little debate game. Like
yeah,
just like the body language and just kind of, you see it in politics. You see it when you have two UFC fighters face off against each other. It's
yeah.
like, okay, one guy is going to flinch and the other guy is going to get mad. It sounds so silly, but it really is a really solid comparison when you think about
Mhm.
kind of the gamesmanship within the game. And I tell people all the time, don't fall into the game. Understand that it is a game. It
Yeah.
is a political game, and there's seats that are vied for, positions, power, control. And that's something that I think the world just needs to take a step back. And I actually had the chance to meet Chuck Schumer. And mingle with some politicians over the years. And I told Chuck Schumer back in like 2017, met with him, sat down with him, and he asked about my background, and I told him about myself. It was a very genuine, nice conversation. The
Yeah.
last thing I said was, I think at this time I want to just see this guy do his job, and I was referring to 45.
Mhm.
And Schumer said, "Okay," and he's like, I appreciate someone your age. I was only 24 at the time.
Mhm. Oh, no.
You
Oh,
you
we're back.
We're back. Yep. A lot of years later, you look back on that and you say, well, I think I'm starting to see the bigger picture. Like
Yeah.
as I get older, I think the more knowledge that I have of what we've just discussed is more clear. And I think it's a very valid conversation. Like anyone that's just listened to this last 15 minutes of this, 20 minutes of this, I think they'll step away thinking, okay, maybe it's good to wear my heart on my sleeve, but it's not good to be so violently combative over my political opinion with other people. That's where it's
It's
getting too much for me.
Yeah, and I think the same can be true about sports, right? If the
Right.
Bills lose, am I heartbroken and crushed and sad? Yeah. Do I let it ruin my week and ruin my life and make it the ultimate narrative of what's going on? No, I don't, because I am happy to kind of self-regulate in that way
Yes.
versus other people. It's the same with politics. I love my job. I love my career, but I have a life. I love
Yes.
being a Bills fan. I love My Bachelorette was the home opener versus the Cardinals last year.
That's
I
awesome.
love being a Bills fan, but
Yeah.
I'm also not only a Bills fan. And I think that's where people they get so like, oh my gosh, politics, oh my gosh, sports, oh my gosh, Joe Brady, oh my gosh, Donald Trump. And it's like, whoa, yeah, I love the passion. I'm here for it. We're on a podcast right now. I'm a Politico talking about Joe Brady, right? Like we all feel this and live this. But
Right.
people have to remember there's a life outside of all of it because you have a real life with a real family and real friends and a real community. And when you get into people's comments or mentions, or just in general about how you want to berate them about how they live their life or what their political opinions are, it's very much like the kids say, like, go touch grass, like,
Yes.
remind yourself that there is more. Because, like, even right now, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to go have dinner with my husband. I'm going to
Hmm.
decompress. I'll go do another TV hit. And then when I'm done, we'll watch a movie. We're not going to
Yeah.
sit up all night and talk about the news of the day or about politics or about my like you got to live life even when the Bills
Yes.
lose and even when you don't like the president.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I don't know how to say this any other way, but if you don't like the president and you're upset that the Bills lost, I think living life, but also be a good role model. Like
Yeah.
I'm really I think of that all the time. Like at my age, as I'm getting older and things like that, it's like set an example. Like
Yeah.
why would I want to create an example of somebody that is just that's not a quality trait,
You
to
know,
go after people for their opinion.
my mom always told me growing up, adults will teach you who you want to be and who you do not want to be. And I think that's very true in sports and politics. You can see an adult and you're like, ooh, I don't like the way that you're talking to those other people. And I don't like the way you're behaving. And see that and not want to model that. And we should, as adults, want to be the person that a younger person or a kid or anybody looks up to and say, oh, I'm good with that. I like that style. And people lose that, especially behind keyboards and behind cell phones
Yes.
and
That
like
emotion's gone. That
yeah,
emotional attachment is kind of gone in that case, right?
they don't care. They don't you like you're not a real person. It doesn't matter to them. And so they'll go at you and it's like, hey, like,
Mhm.
it's the same way, like, when Sarah Sanders got chased out of that restaurant back, 10
Oh,
years ago. I
that's
can't
awful.
imagine what that's like, right? Like seeing someone and being so angry that I chased them out of a restaurant. And
Yeah.
because even if I saw like Joe Morelli, who's the congressman from Rochester, who I do not agree with on policy, let alone the way he treats his staff. Because yet again, I have Democrat friends and I know people who worked for him. Um,
Sure.
like, but I wouldn't like stand outside Joe Morelli's house or accost him at Wegmans or chase him through an airport to make sure he really knew that I think he's a scumbag. Like he can
Mhm.
read my Twitter. Like I've brought receipts. Everybody
Mhm.
knows that I've got beef with Joe Morelli because he's been convicted of election fraud. I don't hide it. I
Right,
don't
right.
hide it.
Right. And that's fair game,
Yeah,
right? That's fair game, when it's out there, it's fair game. You're not talking about his family or,
right.
his relatives or his kids or any like it just there's just a lot of stuff to that I think everyone that's listening to this can come away and say, "You know what? I think let's try to follow that. Let's try to lead with that next time when I have a conversation with somebody about their political opinion that I don't quite agree with. Let's try to make it educational rather than personal." And I think that's really really important.
Yeah.
I got like to wrap this up. I got like a speed round. Are you ready?
Let's go. Yeah.
All right. So you have to draft, let's just say, a starting five basketball team.
Oh
They're not
God.
playing basketball. They're in a debate. It's five people that you've been on TV with, that
Okay.
you've worked with, whatever it may be. What's like your starting top five TV news debaters, could be president debaters, whatever it may be. Go. Top five. No
Uh,
pressure.
Yeah, no, no pressure. When you were talking about basketball lineup, I was like, okay, am I going to go college? Like, am I going to put Kemba Walker on this because I'm a UConn alum? Like, my brain was going.
Yeah.
Um, okay, best five political debaters I've seen on TV or like I go on with. One, I would say my friend Kurt Bardella. He is a Democrat from who now lives in Texas. He was actually originally from Rochester, but was like raised
Oh
in
wow.
California. So he's a Bills fan, but he is a hardcore Democrat. Kurt and I get along really well. We have really great, and he's a great debater, very smart guy. Yemisi Egbawale, again, she's a Democrat, but she's a formidable debater. She's brilliant,
Mm,
she's smart, and I love being on panels with her. I think if you're looking at the Republican side about who I think are some of the top debaters on TV, I think Kellyanne Conway is one of
mm.
the best you will see on TV. She is so steady. She's at Fox full time now, but when she was at CNN, Wolf Blitzer once asked her, he was like, "Well, I know you're having issues in your marriage." And she was like, "I am? Wow, I can't believe this is CNN." But she didn't really flinch in her like reaction. She was so I would say Kurt, Yemisi, Kellyanne, and then I would say who do I think are two other really good? Kevin Walling. It's another Democrat. That's the
Mm.
thing. I keep putting Democrats on this
Yeah,
list
see
because like
that shows
yeah, it's who do I
where
love
you're at.
debating against?
Yeah.
Kevin's a great Democrat from like I think he's from South Carolina or he like lives there part-time. Really fun guy, really smart. Again, a great debater. And then if I think you're looking analytically, who do I think is like one of the smartest brains out there? It's Hugh Hewitt. He
Mm.
is just so well read, so smart. His analysis is always really really brilliant and he does it for hours on the radio and then does it again on TV. So yeah, that would kind of be like right now, Kevin, Kurt, Yemisi, Kellyanne, Hugh Hewitt. I think they're some of the best talent on TV right now.
That's awesome. I'm gonna definitely a few of those names I've heard. I've heard of
Yeah.
Hewitt. I've heard of Kelly. I know Kellyanne. She ran Trump's campaign right in
It's
2016.
in 16. She was a campaign
Yeah,
manager.
that's
Yeah.
right. Right, man. That's one of the biggest underdog victories of all time. She was
Mm-hmm.
running that show. So yeah, that's pretty incredible, man. Aaron, this was awesome.
Yes.
It was even better than I thought it was going to be.
Oh,
So
thank you so much.
yeah,
I loved
yes.
it.
Thank you so much for joining me. Go about the rest of your day before you're back on. Enjoy dinner with your husband. When you talk to your husband, tell him I said one thing. Tell him I said thank you first off for allowing you to give me your time. As well, go Seahawks. Tell him I
I
said that.
mean, go Seahawks. He knows that I want the Patriots to lose
Oh God.
so badly and it grinds my gears. And I tell him I don't trash talk my friends. Like I'm not like, "Oh, you stupid Pats fan." Like I'm not mean to my friends about
Right,
it.
right, right.
I just don't do that as a fan, but I did write F the Patriots on some like fruit food that I like put in the freezer. And he was like, "I thought you don't trash talk fans." I was like, "No, I just leave passive aggressive notes for you around the house."
That's another level of trash talk. That's
I
like
am just
that's
petty AF when it comes to the
yes,
Patriots.
that's awesome.
Unapologetic. Yeah, Bill
So
Belichick, not shocked.
yeah, that was the last thing I was gonna say. So that was the last thing. Bill Belichick gets snubbed. Snubbed.
Yeah.
You're not shocked.
I'm not. Even if you just segment off the NFL portion of his career, he chased Tom Brady out of New England, and everybody thought he was the architect. And then Tom Brady went on to win a Super Bowl, and Bill
Mm,
Belichick cheated when he was head coach. Like, plenty of
the
reason right there
cheating.
not to be a
Cheating.
first round all selection pick to the Hall of Fame. And then if you look at his career since then, he's been a terrible coach at UNC, let alone his creepy child bride relationship. It only took him 49 years for his girlfriend to
Oh,
be born. Before,
yeah.
like, like she can't rent a car without additional insurance at this point. He's ruined his own reputation by having that very public relationship. So you add his UNC coaching in, you add it like people I can understand them being like,
Right.
no, thank you. We can wait a
It,
few
it
years. He'll get in.
he'll get in. He'll get in next. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
shocked if he got in next year. He's just not gonna
Yeah.
give. They're not gonna give him the first ballot status because of the cheating. I think largely.
Yeah.
I think the cheating was massive cheating. They took first round draft picks away. The cheating was so bad, and it helped them win a Super Bowl. I mean,
Yes.
that's crazy. Like that's not
Yeah.
even
Cheater,
talked about
cheater,
enough.
pumpkin eater. It's
Yes,
part of why I hate the Patriots so much. So much. They all sit there and pretend like they had this unbelievable storied franchise. They won a lot of Super Bowls, but they cheated. They are
they
big,
did.
big cheater, cheater, pumpkin eaters. And I even hate even more that Diggs is on that team right now. Loathe.
What was with that? Like him saying,
I know.
everyone thinks I'm washed up. He had 5 catches for 17 yards, Aaron.
It's his
Like he
attitude.
he
It
didn't
is
do
always
anything to help
the
that win.
it was always Diggs's
Oh,
attitude. Since college, his attitude's been a problem. In the
yeah.
pros, his attitude has been a problem. And now he's a dad to like 4 kids in the same year by 4 women. I mean, to be Stefan Diggs at this point, what a wild life. Wild.
When he got traded from Minnesota to Buffalo, I went on a Minnesota Vikings radio show and they said, "Are you excited for Stephon Diggs?" I said, "Yeah. I mean, he's Pro Bowl wide receiver. It's going to help Josh Allen." And then the host was like, "Be careful what you wish for." That was my first taste of what was to come from
Well, don't you
Stephon
remember the
Diggs.
video of them asking, like, who do you not want your sister to date on the
Yes,
team? And
yes.
everybody was Diggs. I mean,
Everyone said Diggs. Everyone
mm-hmm.
said Diggs. Yeah, I think even the coaches for sure were like Diggs. Like I can't
Diggs.
even
He's the
say
problem. Yeah.
14, just 14, and everyone knew what they meant.
Just avoid it. Yeah.
Right. Aaron, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Anytime, seats always open. Love to have you
Thank you.
again.
Yeah. I'm happy to do it.
Go crush it and tell Sean Hannity I said hello.
I will. Go Bills.
Go Bills. Take care. All right, that was Erin McGuire on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. We talked a lot of sports. We talked a lot about the world, this country. Little different. RT's throwing his hat in some different rings with guests like that, and it keeps me informed. I did that more for myself rather than the viewing audience, to be quite honest with you, because she's great. I've followed her for a long time. She treats people really well. She's just my kind of people, and I think it's just a personality standpoint rather than a political standpoint. Diehard Bills fan, diehard Rochesterian. I think that's the way to say it. And she gave me an hour of her time. I cannot thank her enough. Erin McGuire, ladies and gents, that was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Joe Brady named the new Buffalo Bills head coach. With that, it wraps up the 2025-2026 season. Thank you to the 900 plus. We had over 1,500 on here at one point. Tuning in, really appreciate it. And that wraps up the 2025-2026 season. I will be back in the opening week of NFL free agency with another guest that's going to make you guys really, really excited. There you have it. RT is out.